Hey, I'm Rob, and for this video I am making two drums, which doesn't sound special, except I've never done two drums at once before. In fact, last year in 2022, I made 3 drums total for the whole year. And to be honest, 2 of those didn't turn out very well and ended up in the trash can. So I had one that was a good drum, and that one sold at a charity auction for $50,000. So look at my old videos if you want to see about that one. So anyway, I've decided to call this A Tale of Two Drums. It was the best of drums. It was the worst of drums. Actually, they both came out really nice. There's no worst drum here. For these drums, they are the exact same design. Same toolpath, same design in the CAD program, exactly the same in that way. But they're different species of wood, they are different finishing techniques, and I'm trying to find a winner. What's the best way to do this that's the most efficient way of doing this without wasting time on extensive finishing projects? In the past finishing drums, I've spent a full week getting a good finish on a drum. Multiple layers, letting it dry between layers, sanding between layers, more layers, more layers, more layers. I'm trying to find something much easier. The 2 things I'm looking at right now are Odie's oil, which is a hard oil finish, and also spray lacquer. Let's get into the video, and at the end we'll see which is better or if they're equally good. Before we get into designing the drums and showing the cutting of the drums, I want to mention badges. People have asked me quite a few times now why I don't put badges on my drums. And it comes down to a lot of my drums are odd shapes. I have designs I don't want to cover up. And there's just many reasons I'm not putting my badge on my drums. And to be honest, that's a marketing thing. And I'm doing this as a hobby. I'm not real interested in going out trying to sell thousands of drums. Later in the video, I will show how I'm addressing not having badges on my drums. But for now, this kind of sums up how I feel about it.
Badges? We ain't got no badges. We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges.
For this drum, I'm using a technique called V-carving, which, if you're a CNC woodworker, that probably makes sense. But most people who are not CNC woodworkers, this makes no sense. So I'm going to go just over a few basic techniques right now for toolpaths and cutting wood with a CNC. The first we call a pocket. I'm going to run the preview of this. It's going to cut that pocket out. You can do that in many different shapes, but notice how we designed that, it had a square edge. When we go to the preview, it's got a round edge. That is because it's a router bit cutting this out, and it can't cut a square corner with a round bit like that. The next example I'm going to show is etching. And basically, we'll get a pointy bit, a V bit, and cut along a line, and it will cut things like that. You can cut text, and it looks good that way, but it's still very flat. Nothing special about that. Next, I'll show what's called V-carving. We'll use a V bit and a flat bit like we did, combine these two here. The nice thing about V-carving is the bit will come out at an angle, a diagonal, and that V point bit, it'll actually leave a sharp edge. So we can get a round bit can leave a sharp edge, which is a really powerful technique. So first you'll see these round edges, and now it comes out a diagonal, and we have a sharp edge now. And then we take that to extreme. We're going to cut, this design looks a lot like that one, but it's going to get deeper and shallower and give a real 3D effect to it, but it's still very fast doing this. So notice now how these two are kind of the same design, yet this is much more dramatic. Change in depth, this gets as far as deep as, notice here the depth down to over 1/10 of an inch deep, whereas the shallow point, it's 30 thousandths or 0.03. So very dramatic difference. And the last technique I just want to touch on is called 3D, which kind of makes sense. It's very cool, but it is very slow to do, and you have to buy the 3D artwork for this. You don't have to, but I'm not talented enough to make the 3D artwork myself. Doing 3D artwork on a drum, which I've often done, can take many, many, many hours. I've spent 15 hours on a drum before doing 3D artwork. It came out beautiful, but a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of things that can go wrong in that 15 hours. Once I start spending 15 hours just doing the cutting process, not including the design, I'm making about half minimum wage or even less on these drums. So Yes, it's a hobby, so I'm not interested in getting rich on this, but dang, I hate to waste my time also on projects. And honestly, like you had before, a lot of drums don't turn out. So I can spend 20, 30 hours on a drum and throw it away in the end. I want this to be a self-sustaining hobby at least. I don't want to lose money doing this. For the actual Flourish design, I looked quite a while trying to find one I was satisfied with. I found this on Etsy for $3 or $4. I don't remember how much it was, not much. I did have to tweak it quite a bit. This is a design that I wanted to repeat. So this actually is the same design that repeats a total of 6 times across, wrapping around the drum. I had to edit a little bit to get the repeat to match up right so it joined together. And also the top and bottom edge, which on the drum this looks like left and right. But on the drum it'll be the top and the bottom. Had to cut off anything that went too far this way. A lot of editing. There's a good chance something right here went way out, and I put this piece in there to make it look right. Now, when V-carving, it cuts inside the lines, and it gets, like we saw before, it gets deeper the wider it is. If I were to cut this right now, it would cut inside this line and leave this top flush out here. On the actual drum, I went opposite. I put a border around it, so now instead of cutting this piece, it's cutting this open area here. So this part will be flush the top of the drum. This will be the V-carved indentation. And of course, outside here, same thing, be flush out here on the edge, flush here on the edge. And I tweaked it also for like where the lug holes are. I put a circle around there and then edited the file so it looks right. So when we cut the drum, this will be nice and flush, so where the lugs match up the drum, it'll look good. So for the bearing edge of the drum, I'm using a molding tool path. It's going to cut this shape on the outside edge of the drum. So it's going to cut down here deep enough that eventually when I finish this by hand, I'll use a contouring bit from a router table and finish cutting that edge so the contour bit will match up right there. Usually the bearing edge on a drum are measured in a radius. So if I put, this would be a 1/16 of an inch radius, so if I put an 1/8 of an inch circle right here, the radius is measured from this point to this point. So half of a 1/8 inch circle is 1/16 inch radius. And if you look closely, you see how it kind of contours right there. I was trying to get a 1/16 inch radius, but the way I do it is then, of course, that very contact spot where the drum head matches, try to visualize this. At this point, the drum will cut away. So this will be wood here. This will be the open inside of the drum, and the drum head will hit right here and then contour down. So I do what I call a contour radius. So it starts at that 1/16 and then gradually flattens out till it's level here. So not just a basic one little circle here. It matches, it conforms better to the drum head, I believe. And it's debatable if that's better or not for a drum, but I think it's cool. I can do it, and most people can't. So with my machinery, I think I should be doing a little bit unique things like this. So that's the design. Let's go ahead and go over to 3D preview. That is the drum. I'm going to turn this sideways so it looks how it will actually look when we conceptualize a drum. I can go back and forth between flat or a drum shape like that. It's easier to see the whole thing at once, so I like the flat. I'll do the flourish part last. This will be where it drills the lug holes, the vent hole, the bearing edge top and bottom. So let's go ahead and preview that part right there. Let it do its stuff. All the holes for the hardware. And on snare drums, you have a snare bed, they call it. So it actually gets a little lower here, so the snare bed will fit through here right. And let's look at it this way. There's that radius, compound radius I talked about there. And let's do the flourish now. When it cuts the flourish, it does it randomly in spots around the drum, which is fine, except when you're shooting a video. it's not great video because like when I do a 3D file, it slowly goes around the drum one line at a time. I can do a time lapse. It looks great. Whereas this, it's fine. It comes out great in the end, but trying to show this on the time lapse, it jumps around a lot. And I'll still show some of that, but not the best video. But we can see here, like we said, I showed before how it leaves the top of these pieces, the flourish leaves, whatever, it leaves those flush at the top and cuts around them. So that's what I was trying to explain earlier. And before, I talked about the badges, no stinking badges. Well, I decided to integrate my logo and stuff into the design. You might not have seen it until I really point this out, but Sidewinder drums. So instead of it sticking out and not being part of the art or covering the art or not conforming, I like this. This shows the name, but it still looks like part of the drum. And I have the logo on this side. Our Sidewinder snake with the drumsticks in his mouth. So I'm pretty happy with that sign. So next we will go out to the machine. I will show the wood types and we will look at the carving process, the CNC process, and then eventually the finishing process. So let's head out to the machine now. The two varieties of wood I'm using for these drums are first hard maple. This piece really has some nice ribbon or flame in it. And the other piece is cherry. And this one also has great character. It has more of a quilted look to it and lots of good character and color to it. Another one of those unique features that I'm using to build drums is wavy staves. You've probably heard me talk about staves multiple times. That's a strip of wood that goes up and down, that wraps around the drum. You need to have an angle to it so it's a nice tight fit. With the CNC, I'm cutting those, instead of a straight line like most people do, I have a wavy design that goes back and forth. You can see it here. I can do 10 staves at a time, so I have to do this process twice. It takes about 2.5 hours to do all 20 staves for a drum, which isn't too bad, especially since the machine's doing it and I don't have to be doing this by hand the whole time. So yes, it takes a little longer than making staves by hand, but the machine is free labor. It's doing it in the background while I'm doing other things. The first pass it makes, it's cutting straight down 3/4 of an inch. It's basically hogging out the wood in the middle of the staves. The next pass, it drops down and cuts only 30/1000ths of an inch per pass, and it stair steps slightly out each pass to get that 9-degree angle we want in the end. I'm planning on making an in-depth video on this whole wavy stave process. I made a video a while back about the spreadsheet I use that does all the calculations to make the G-code for this. The next step I want to do is actually go from start to finish, making a design, running through that spreadsheet that creates the G-code, and then out to the machine to make the actual staves. It's a pretty unique process, and I'm sure no one's going to copy that, though they're welcome to if they want to. But it's more interesting to me just finding a problem, attacking it, and coming up with a solution. There's probably more efficient solutions to do what I'm doing, but it works for me, and this is a hobby. I'm not trying to do the most efficient thing for a business to save time over mass producing something 10,000 times. I'll probably use this process for 15 or 20 drums, which is great, but it's not like I'm a mass production facility going here. The first few times I did this technique, I used the blue painter's tape and super glue technique to hold it down. And I decided I like using a jig better to hold a ring down. It's just quicker and easier, and for some reason I like clamps better than the blue tape technique. And to close out building the staves, here is a quick photo of the stave. You can see the angle it cuts at, and you can still see the angle going down the line. Kind of a good photo, shows the concept, what we're trying to do here. I didn't shoot any video of gluing up the staves into a raw shell because it's just gluing up something, kind of boring, and CNC videos can be boring already, so I don't want to make it any more boring yet. So at this point, I'm skimming the drums to get them around. The bit I'm using here is the 1-inch surfacing bit from Garrett over at IDC Woodcraft. I really like this bit. It does a great job. In the past, I used other bits. I had to take 2 or 3 passes. This does it in one single pass and does a great job. It's a big time saver. As I skim this cherry drum, you can see it looks much lighter under the surface. Cherry darkens over time, especially on the exterior from both oxygen and UV rays, and it's much lighter now underneath, but over time it will darken up again to get that cherry color we expect. I did a time-lapse recording of the whole carving of the V-carve shape on the drum, and the drum spins and stops and starts so much that the time-lapse really wasn't usable. It just didn't look good enough to use. By chance when I did this, I got out my cell phone and recorded some footage here. Much better. Shows how it really works, how that cuts, goes back and forth. So much better video just by chance with my cell phone than my fancier GoPro clone. The bit I'm using here for the V carving is the Jenny 90-degree downshear V bit. Great bit made for the CNC community. What's special about this is it forces the chips down as it cuts instead of jerks them sideways. Gives a cleaner finish and less chip out. The next step in the process is putting the bearing edge on the top of the drum. I talked about this a bit in the design software. The first part of this, it will drop down a ½ inch, create that pocket. As the bit raises up, it'll start moving to the left, given that compound radius that I talked about too. And the bit I'm using here is a 1/4 inch ball nose. It's also made by Cody over at Cadence Manufacturing. This one's called the Jenny Big B. The exterior work on the drum on the CNC machine has now been completed. From start to finish, the time I mounted the drum to I took it back off took a little less than 4 hours. For me, that's amazing. I never had a drum done this fast, so I'm really happy with this technique. It's very efficient and it looks great still. The next step is to go to the inside of the drum. And I have a very unique process set up for doing the inside of the drums too. To skim the inside of the drum, obviously the router needs to go inside the drum, so the drum needs to wrap around the gantry. There are 8 bolts holding the gantry to the rest of the CNC machine. I'm going to remove 7 of those bolts and loosen the 8th bolt. That way I can lift the gantry out a little bit and put the gantry inside the drum. Once the drum is around the gantry, I need to put those 8 bolts back in place. There's a carriage that goes on the CNC. It holds the drum. There's wheels on it. There'll be a plate on each side of the drum so the drum can't shift left and right, and a belt that goes around the drum so it spins and the drum will spin and the router can cut the inside of the drum. I recently modified this carriage. Previously it hung from the gantry with some hooks. Now it sits on the base of the CNC machine. It's much more stable now. Plus these hooks don't limit the left-right movement or the X movement of the CNC machine. Here I am skimming the inside of the maple drum. I can tell it's the maple drum because I can see the cherry drum sitting to the left of the machine on the floor. I have no kind of dust collection for this machine, and especially the inside, you can see the dust chips are stacking up rather quickly. For skimming the inside of the drum, I'm using a large bowl bit I also got from Garrett over at IDC Woodcraft. Once again, a single pass comes out great. I have to say the quality of bits I get from both Garrett and Cody are top-notch. The first drum I'm going to finish is the cherry drum. I'm using Odie's hard wax oil finish on this. It is a very easy to use product. Normally to apply Odie's, you just wipe it on. And that works great for a flat surface, but when you have a 3D carving or a V-carve like this, it doesn't get the joints very well. I was thinking about this a lot, and one morning brushing my teeth, it came to me. A toothbrush is the right tool for this job. One of the big pluses for Odie's oil is it penetrates the wood and it actually hardens and makes it a little harder. And that's important. You look at that fine detail carving, it would be easy for pieces to chip off. So anything I can get that'll make the wood a little bit harder and less prone to accidents is a big plus. After applying the Odie's oil, I waited 20 minutes and then went back to wipe it off. That's how simple it is. I might do a second coat later just to see if it changes anything, but they recommend 1 coat, and I think that's all it really takes. For the maple drum, I'm going to do a completely different finishing technique. First, I'm going to put down some Watco Danish oil with a walnut tint. My idea on this is, first of all, to add a little more color to the drum. That also should pull out the ribbon or the flame in that. And then inside the V carving, it should be a little thicker there and make a little darker background, making that carving pop. Applying Danish oil is even easier than the Odie's oil. It goes right in the cracks. It's thin enough it goes right in. The problem is I have to wait a full day before I go to the next step. I would have to say that my original hope of getting this to get in the crevices, make it a little darker, and have their shape pop really worked out well. I am really happy with this finish so far. Now after both drums have been completed, I still go back and forth which finish I like better, the Odie's or the Danish oil with lacquer. For the maple drum, after I put on the Danish oil, I'm now putting on Mohawk Gloss Lacquer. Mohawk is a good brand, very highly recommended, often used in musical instruments and fine furniture. So I believe the quality is there, and for my tests, it's very good. I'm happy with it. I put down 3 coats, did a light buff, and put a 4th coat on, and that's where I'm standing right now, and I'm pretty happy with it right now. For all the safety police out there, the garage door is cracked, the fan is going, and I'm wearing a respirator. So even though lacquer can be a little dangerous, I think I've covered all the bases here. Here are a few final shots of the drums. They are completed, but I'm waiting for hardware still. I'll post some pictures online once the hardware comes in so you can get a good picture of how it looks, the final version, what it would look like if somebody actually buys it. Neither one of these are sold yet. I just wanted to build these, so I built them. If you're interested, reach out and contact me and we can talk. If you've enjoyed this video, please give me a like and a subscribe, and we'll talk to you later. Have a great day.